Hello and welcome to this second of our two-part feature looking at how to integrate sample libraries built upon Native Instruments' Kontakt Player platform into your productions. Now, in the first part, we had a look at a more general overview of what Kontakt is, how you install it and get set up, and I showed some examples of it up and running in Ableton, making use of Spitfire Audio's Albion orchestral sample libraries. Now, in this feature, we're going to look at a bit more in depth at those Albion libraries. We've got Albion 1 and Albion 5 to play with, so we're going to take a look at some of the articulations and unique sounds that you can get with us, as well as the different player interfaces they offer. So in the opening musical example, I used a lot of Albion 5 Tundra. As you can hear, there's a lot of very interesting, very ambient sounds in there. Now, in Spitfire Audio's Albion range, there's distinct flavours to each of the packages, and they're kind of created by different arrangements of the orchestra, as well as kind of different instructions to the players to use different articulations. And those articulations are really the key to getting the most out of these libraries. So if I pull up the player here, and let's have a look at the interface. I've currently got my MIDI controller mapped through to this particular slot of the high strings main. Now, along here we can see a list of kind of musical instructions. These are the articulations, and you can switch between them just by clicking on them. So you can see very interesting range of sounds, and not your total regular orchestral sounds by any means. Instructions to the players included things like using the back of their bows and you know, making more ambient noise than they normally would. So on some of those samples you can hear kind of like cluttering sounds around the hall. Now, in order to access the different articulations, there are a few ways of doing it, and the normal approach is to use key switching. So if you're not familiar with key switching, this is where you assign a portion of your controller keyboard to as switches which select each of these different articulations. Now, this is fine if you've got a full-size keyboard, but if you're like me using a kind of compact rig, it's not quite so convenient. Now, the way to set up key switching with Albion is very simple. You just grab this keyboard logo here, and you'll see down on the keyboard on the screen a range of red highlighted keys. These are the key switch keys. So what that means is now this portion of my keyboard is assigned to key switching, which leaves this portion for playing notes. Obviously, this is great during performances because it means you can, on the move, jump between articulations and create something very dynamic and interesting. Though when you're composing, you might not necessarily want to use key switching, and also if you're doing it with a scoring package, you'll end up with a load of extraneous notes that represent the key switches appearing on your score, which you don't want. So there are alternatives to using key switching. Fortunately, like I say, if you've got a limited range keys, you can do MIDI mapping. So this is something that generally, well, it's a feature I think that's very well implemented in this Kontakt Player platform, in that you just click on a parameter and right-click, so two-finger tap there, and it gives you the option to learn a MIDI controller. Now, a lot of the controls within Albion have already been mapped up for you. So, for example, controller 32 is already set to do articulation, but if I wanted to put that to, you know, an arbitrary controller, I just do that, and now as I twist that knob, you can see problem with that as well is it's not often that easy to accurately select on the fly by turning the knob, because depending on what range of articulations are available, the full range of that controller will be mapped to that range of articulations. So, for example, something with 20 articulations will have smaller increments, if you like, compared to something with only 4 articulations. Just something to be aware of. Like I say, MIDI mapping is really nicely done here, and if you go onto the automation pane within the Kontakt Player, and MIDI automation, you get to see what's been assigned to what, and you can do things like drag and drop. So for example, if I say I want to just twist my controls there, CC2, that isn't assigned to anything at the moment. If I wanted to assign that to, let's just say, close mic position, it's as simple as that, dragging and dropping it. And if I want to change that assignment, I can remove it. I could just relearn it like that. Now, I'm playing around here with mic position, and this neatly leads me on to something else I want to talk about. In the previous feature, I did mention that these sample libraries are big, and there's a reason why they're big, because they're multi-mic. They've used quite a large array of mics placed close and far on the orchestra to give you a nice selection of sounds to play with, and now you have a little mixer here that allows you to blend those sounds. So if I just switch to a pizzicato sound, you can hear the difference more clearly. So this is using a close, and then if I pull those slider down, you have a massive sense of room there, and that's using those ambient mics. So quite a range of tonal options there available in terms of room sound. Now, one thing that's probably worth noting is even with close miking, you've got the sound of the room there. So this isn't a set of dry pop strings, that kind of vibe. If that's what you're looking for, it's probably not the right library for you. Okay, so we've had a quick look there at articulations and MIDI mapping and the mic options available to you. There's also a few other little controls here that are worth noting that give you the ability to fine-tune the performance of the orchestra and really create some sense of dynamic and expression within the sound. And of course, all these controllers can be automated, so you can create lanes in your DAW and have them evolve with time and create some interesting effects that way. So that's really about it in terms of an overview of the first interface, the standard orchestral interface, if you like. But Spitfire Audio have done a lot of work in trying to provide alternative ways to use their sounds. So one of those is this eDNA player, which is this beast here. Now, there are a whole load of patches that have been made available that run with the eDNA player, and they're kind of in the vein of atmospheric, ambient and rhythmic sounds. So for example, this sound here, where we've got 2 different pads being dynamically blended between some effects, some modulations, and a bit of gating going on. And you get this nice kind of, that's a bellows pad there. And then you've got something more percussive, for example, if we go over to the percussion section, and that's this patch here. We've got a cymbal set up. Now, the eDNA player is essentially a sample-backed synth, and you've got a lot of features like LFOs, you can control amplitude, pitch, frequency, got this dynamic mixer and a gate, and all of these can be tweaked to create some very interesting and unique sounding passages. So that's just a very quick example of the kind of range of sounds you can get from the Kontakt interface, which is down really to the power of the scripting engine behind it, which allows designers to create these unique sounding instruments. So here's a simple chord sequence using that bellows pad. Let's throw on a beat. Add a bit of percussion, again using the eDNA player. Now I wonder what that would sound like with a bit of pumping. So let's drop a compressor on the end of the Kontakt Player, side chain it to the kick, and set the ratio up and start bringing the threshold down. Then if we throw in the bass line, once the sequence goes round, Okay, so there you go, a very simple example of how you could apply these sound libraries to different styles of music production, not just the orchestral or film scoring styles that they're normally associated with. Now, if you're interested in finding out more, you want to download the free Kontakt Player, head over to Native Instruments website, and you'll also find there a huge list of compatible libraries that you can use with that. And if you want to know a bit more about Spitfire Audio, head over to their website, spitfireaudio.com, and there you can see their full range of orchestral sample libraries, as well as there's tutorials on their journal entries, interesting information about the whole process. Okay, so that about wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that interesting, and I'll see you on the next feature.